we're going to start today here on the welcome screen of our LDMS. Now, the first items I'd like to cover are located in the administration menu. The first option are projects. For our new private labs, with all the new COVID research, we have had many new laboratories start up, and we also have some network labs that have the ability of creating their own projects. We have added some new features into the project setup. When you're creating a new project using the Add New action dropdown, you'll still give your project a name, and this project name will be present in all of the drop-down menus, a description, and below that header information, we have these three tabs. So you not only define the ID1, the ID2, or the ID3, which is the participant identifier, the enrollment identifier, and the visit identifier, you can now designate the format of the data that is going to be inputted into that field. So for my ID1 is a PID, the description is a participant ID, and then my format available is alphabetic, numeric, alphanumeric, or following the ACTG impact algorithm. So I'll choose numeric, and I can also designate a minimum and a maximum length. So maybe all of my participant IDs will be 6 digits in length, and no alphabetic characters are allowed. So I'll go ahead and set that field length, the minimum and maximum. Now, if someone were to try to input a PID for this project within QuickAdd, when the data checks run upon saving the record, it would flag that as an invalid PID. The enrollment configuration, or the ID2, follows the same settings. You still have your name and description as before. You can set the ID2 as required or not, and then the available formats are here. If you select list, you can upload, or you can place the identifier or the study name within this list, one per line, and then again, when those data checks run within QuickAdd, if the ID2 does not have study 1 or study 2, it would show it as an invalid value. We see those same settings within ID3. Staying in the administration module, if we drop down, we have a new setting, the drop-down customization. From the drop-down list, you can select the field, and we'll use the project category. And here you can deselect projects that your lab does not use. And this will shorten the list within QuickAdd. So for our clients who utilize the manual data entry within QuickAdd, they can customize what is viewable within that dropdown. Now I say viewable because if you were to type, let's take VTN where my cursor is right here, it would still be there and you could still accession. But it does allow the drop-downs to be more useful in that they can drop down and quickly find the data item they're looking for. And if you deselect something and need to activate it later, you can always come back here and make that change. We see in our drop-down list, we can customize the clinic, the ID2, ID3 project, the shipping destination and the shipping module, and if you're utilizing our test results module, the test name. Also, if you're utilizing assigned tests within Specimen Management, the test name list can be truncated. Staying within administration, our lab settings have changed. Now, these settings, once applied, will be set for anyone logging into your database. The first two options are still here to process tech initials defaults to current user, auto set frozen date and time. We now have the ability of printing primary labels. So if you wish to have that label available to place on a requisition or other paperwork, it is a quick way of getting back to that specimen record. That is available, and you can toggle that on or off by using the setting. And also our sample picker, which is available in storage, in shipping, as well as the labels module. You can set the default number of samples that are displayed by making that change here. So we're going to move into specimen management and discuss those new primary labels. If I go to my primary here and I use this new edit dropdown, I see I now have the option to print my primary label. If I give that a click and generate, you see it will create one individual label for that primary. We see the triple zeros here at the end. If I use the drop down here and I'll bring up the print labels menu, we see the option to print the primary label is available here. You can toggle it on or off. That default setting we just saw in lab settings. So you can make that always checked if that primary label is something you want to bring into your lab's workflow. We'll move on into our storage module. Now we have a couple new features here. The most visible is the auto assign storage position checkbox. This was once present in that lab settings, and you had to go into administration to toggle that on and off, which, you know, if you're in the midst of storing specimens, was a little bit out of the way. So now it's here on our stored samples page. The default is active and checked. You can always toggle it off. So if I move to my rack and go to my move exercise box, I can scan specimens into position. Turn on my barcode scanner here. So we see the specimen has been stored. I can scan another. That specimen has been stored. And if I toggle off the auto assign, when I scan a specimen, I can then choose the position manually by highlighting the space and clicking continue. In the edit dropdown, if you use our store specimens option here, the manual way of breaking specimens into storage, you see that the sample picker default size is now 50, and that was the setting that we put in place in the administration menu. We also have a feature that allows a specimen to the specimen overflow. So if you select too many specimens for a storage item, they remain selected, and then you can choose a second destination to take those overflow samples. So I have two sample boxes here, and if I would like to move my specimens into it, I'm going to go to the action drop-down menu and choose Move Storage Items. I'll highlight my specimens that I want to bring into those sample boxes. And then I'll click the next button at the top right-hand corner. I see that I have 53 items selected in my message here at the top of the menu. And then if I choose sample box 1 as my first destination, I see that there is not enough space left in sample box 1, and I need to confirm that I want to move the first 25 of my 53 items into it. I do, so I'll go ahead and click continue. I'll autofill that container. It did not do automatically because I left my auto assign checkbox deselected at the top here. And now I'll choose another destination for my 23 items here, my 28 items. I'll click select and continue. And I'll fill that sample box. I still have 3 specimens remaining, and I'll place those into position. So previously in other versions of the LDMS, that overflow, you'd have to go and select those specimens again if you had overage for any one container. And now they're held in memory, and you can continue to choose a destination until your sample boxes, until all the samples are brought into position. So that is it for storage. Within shipping, if you are a lab that receives specimens, you can now update the condition code and add comments to any specimens that you're bringing into your lab's database. So if I click Receive Shipments, the second option in my shipping module, I'll select my LDMS file. We click Preview. I'll confirm my temperature, and just below that confirmation menu, we see this button to manage import. I'll click Edit Condition Codes, and in this pop-up menu, I see a list of the specimens that are within the shipment. Now, let's say that one of these cryovials was damaged during transit, so I can go ahead and select that cryovial in the list. I can update the condition code. I'll use DMG for damage. Now, what if it was damaged and we're not able to salvage any of the specimen? I can also set it to unavailable and then add a comment. If you click update at the bottom, we see that the settings are in place here for that selected specimen, and then I can move to another specimen if unfortunately we had several issues within this shipment. When you're finished making your adjustments to your samples, you can click Save. Notice that everything defaults to satisfactory here, so if there are no issues with the sample, those settings, again, are optional. Only put that in place if there is an issue with that shipment. I'll proceed to click Receive Shipment at the bottom, and I'll process that file. The last thing I want to cover within the software here is some changes to the custom report builder. So if you're not familiar with that module, this is the data extraction module. We allow you to create a flat text file with a lot of the fields that are available within LDMS. Almost all the fields that are displayed, at least, are present here in this all fields list. Now we build that report by selecting the display checkbox in our first column here. And I'm going to create a quick report with some specimen information. So let's bring that to the front here. I'm going to choose an ID2, which is our study. I'll choose a derivative so I can tell what type of aliquot I'm working with. And then we're going to use one of our new features here, which is this add count field. So in the LDMS, you used to have to export all the data and then go to Excel to run subtotals and other counts. Well, you can perform that function right here now in Custom Report Builder. So I'll click Add Count Field, select the data field that you want to use, and I'll choose the global specimen ID. You give it a name that will be in the fields to display list. I'll call it the aliquot count. And then you have this distinct button if you only want to bring in distinct sets of that field. But I want to bring in everything and then count so I have an accurate number of the aliquots I have in inventory. So I'll click OK, and we see it placed in the fields to display. So I'm now going to create some search criteria here at the bottom. In my selection criteria window, I'm going to choose my project. Again, if you're not familiar with how this works, we do have a video available on our page, but I'm going to select and then set my project in the menu here. Other search fields I'd like to point out, we have a availability field. I want to make sure that the aliquot is available for my count. And then we have a specimen type field. So if I give that a click, do I want primaries or aliquots? So I want to make sure that I'm only counting my aliquots. So I'll bring that in. The second big change that we have made within this custom report builder is the ability for wildcards. So I want to find all the specimens that belong to boxes that start with sample. So I'm going to put in a part of that name because I have sample box 1, sample box 2, multiple boxes that start with that sample name. And then I'll use the asterisk as the wildcard. I'm going to set my operator to like. So it's only going to find boxes with names like this. Again, we have that asterisk at the end. Now click Add. Now let's preview this report. So it ran for the first 100 samples, and I see my study name. I see what type of aliquot that I have in inventory or in my storage module, and then the total number in that aliquot count field. So I have 7 double-spun plasmas that belong to A5321. I have 38 high-spun plasmas that belong to A5345 in my sample boxes. Now this is running again only for the first 100. Once you click generate, it'll run for your entire database. But that preview allows you to see if your search criteria works and if your report setup is correct. Now we have had some questions come in through the QA panel. I'll answer those questions just after the PowerPoint. So we have a few more slides here on the new features that are in 9.0. Now within specimen management, we saw the PID values here cannot change if they result in a merged record at the participant level. So it used to be, we saw in specimen management, the data is organized by project and PID. All the participants have their own record. Now, if you change a participant's ID and it results in two of those pages merging together, that's now blocked. We do not allow that to happen anymore. In the shipping module, if you have outgoing shipments and there are errors with the specimens, you can now correct those from the validation error page. So it will list all the specimens that have an error, and you can then correct those samples. There is a text file that is created within Web LDMS, our Web LDMS CSV shipping file. We also use that to bulk import samples into a database. Now, there is an updated version of that, and that is available on the website. In administration, we went through the setup of projects. You can now define the formats for ID1, ID2, ID3. For your user accounts, if they become disabled due to inactivity, user support now receives a message, it's flagged, and then they will follow up with the laboratory to check, is that staff member still a member of your lab? Should they still have access to your LDMS, or should that access be removed? We have a new module, the data submission module. It facilitates file transfers to Frontier Science, and you can transfer multiple files. There's a 30 megabyte max per submission. And this module is closed to everyone by default, and access is granted by Frontier Science if you belong to a project or study that will be using that module. But it is something you will see in that toolbar at the top. And this is another useful feature. If you are locked out due to inactivity, your session's expired, maybe you've gone on break, you can now log in from that expiration message. It used to be you had to refresh your page. Now you can log back in. You'll be taken directly to where you left off in the software. At the bottom, if you have questions, please email our user support department. If you're using these new features and they do not quite make sense, you can always reach out to user support. The full release notes are available on our website at ldms.org/news. You can click here for all the 9.0 releases. And while we're here, always a reminder, everything we have created for our laboratories is available on our resources page. We have our user manuals that has been updated for 9.0. It's always updated when we do a new release. Training materials, those have been updated as well. Videos, I'm in the process of refreshing some of our videos. So you'll see some of those new ones come out on this videos page, also hosted on our YouTube channel. So always remember your resources are available here. Under general documentation, there's that new version of that CSV shipping file. The contact us page, do not hesitate. Reach out to user support. They're your primary contact. If you have any LDMS questions by phone, by email, use this form. Always remember to use your LDMS lab ID when contacting user support, regardless of the method. It does facilitate quicker communication if they know which laboratory they're speaking with.